I'm starting a new treadmill motor conversion series. This series will be a step-by-step guide, start to finish, everything that you need to know to put a treadmill motor on your shop tool or for any other project that is not a treadmill.
Greetings, fellow DIYer, and welcome to my video.
So the first question you may be asking, especially if you're familiar with my channel, is why am I doing this series? My channel currently has over 70 videos all on treadmill motor conversions. And while that information is readily available and good information, it's not a step-by-step guide on how to do one of these conversions. Basically what happened was I got into treadmill motors and I started doing videos on them, and then as people ask questions, I would create a specific video dealing with their question. Ultimately, that makes for a lot of really good information, but the downside is it's not a series of videos that you can watch one after the other to get a good picture of exactly what you need to do. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do this series. I don't know how many videos it's going to be. We'll see how the creating process goes. This is going to be video number 1, and we're just going to talk about some very basic things. Then in video 2, we'll actually dive into some electronics and get a little further than we will on this first video. So this first video, it's going to be mostly me talking, fairly cerebral. We're just basically going to answer 2 questions. The first question is, why would you even want to convert to a treadmill motor? And the second question is, where can you get the parts? So let's dive in. So the question of why has come up quite a bit. Most of the time, if you are wanting a treadmill motor on your shop tool, say it's a mill or a lathe, that's the most common conversion that I see for using this type of motor. The reason you want it is because a treadmill motor makes variable speed simple. Now, what does that mean? Well, with AC motors, in most cases, they are designed to run at one speed. The power coming in from the wall sets the speed, and that's the speed that the motor runs at. If you try changing the voltage coming out of the wall, yes, the motor may run slower on an AC motor, but it is extremely hard on the motor. AC motors are calibrated to a very specific speed, and they don't like to have any other voltage than what they are designed for. So with an AC motor, it can be challenging to adjust the speed. Now, there is a device called a VFD that does allow you to change the speed of an AC motor. However, it's usually a 3-phase motor, and VFDs are expensive. Now, don't get me wrong, a VFD setup is a superior setup to what we are talking about here. And a VFD setup is what you see on a lot of very high-end equipment. But if you are at my channel, you're probably a DIYer. You're someone who's trying to make things work on a budget. And that's where we enter the treadmill motor. Now, what's different about these motors compared to the motor that probably came on your mill or lathe is that these are DC motors. Now, if you don't know the difference between DC and AC, it's pretty simple. DC is positive and negative, and the electricity flows in one direction. AC is alternating current, which means it switches back and forth from positive to negative. So you get kind of this motion going. What's nice about a DC motor is if you vary the voltage, you vary the speed. And that is why treadmills, which need to be able to vary the speed of the motor, typically use DC motors. Now, there is one exception. If you get a high-end commercial-grade treadmill, it will probably have an AC motor and VFD in it. And why is that? Because that is the superior setup. In most cases, this is good enough. VFD is, however, the top of the line. So by going with a DC type motor, we now have the ability to change speeds. Now, with most hobby mills and lathes, you change the speed by changing your pulley drive. And while that is effective, that requires time and energy from the end user, and it also doesn't allow you to change on the fly. So as an example, when I had my 3-in-1 combo machine, I set it at 500 RPM because that was a decent speed for a lot of applications, and I pretty much just left it there. The quality of my cuts suffered because the speed never changed. As you turn something down and it gets smaller, you typically want speeds to go up. If you're turning something that's bigger, speeds need to go down. And depending on what you're doing, you actually may need to make those adjustments while you're making cuts. Now, that's way more complicated, and that's not something I do real often. But the ability to listen to the contact that's happening between the cutting tool and the work and be able to adjust speeds is extremely valuable. And so that's the why. That is why you want to go to a treadmill motor and get away from that AC motor that probably came on your machine. So now that we know the why, the question is the where. Where do we get a treadmill? Any place that you can find one. And for me, that was Craigslist. That was Facebook Marketplace. That was any place where I could run an ad saying free treadmill wanted. And the free part is key. There are a lot of people throwing away treadmills, and oftentimes they're throwing them away because the treadmill doesn't work. But that doesn't mean the motor's bad. And if the motor is bad, that doesn't mean there aren't other components on the treadmill that are good that could be used in your project. My suggestion is to cast a wide net. Get several treadmills. Get 5 or 6. Don't be like me and scrap 18. That was a little bit excessive. But get as many treadmills as you can, and if you can make it happen, don't pay for any of them. Of the 18 treadmills that I scrapped, I only paid for 1. And at the time, I didn't know any better. What I did is I set up ads on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and I said, treadmill wanted. Now, I had to do the work of going and picking up these treadmills. In a lot of cases, people are just trying to get the equipment out of their house before they're moving, or because they're not using it and it's taking up space. So there are people out there that are more than willing to give away their treadmills. Now, the question you may be wondering is, which treadmill should I get? Because clearly there is a big difference between this motor and this motor. And I've had a lot of people email me and leave comments on my YouTube videos saying, do you have a list? Can you tell me the make and model of the treadmill I should or should not be looking for? And my answer to that question is always the same. The treadmill you want to find is free. By getting free treadmills, that allows you to get several. And then you can mix and match parts and make the best of what you're doing. The reason I don't have an exhaustive list that shows, okay, this motor came out of this type of treadmill and this motor came out of this type of treadmill is because there are so many treadmill manufacturers that list would be pretty long. And then you add to the fact that those treadmill manufacturers change their model every couple years. So you could be looking at a 20-year period of good usable treadmill parts, and that's going to be hundreds of different makes and models. So if you cast a wide net and get as many treadmills as you can then pick and choose the parts that are best for your product. And what's nice about treadmills is all treadmills come with some good stuff. So the treadmill that this little motor came in, it's not as much use for this little motor, although there is use for it. The motor was not the good part on the treadmill, but the treadmill decking, great for shelf material, great for countertop material. Also, the treadmill that this came on had a choke on it. Now, if you're wondering what a choke is, that's an important component used to smooth out the power and eliminate arcing at the brushes. And we're going to cover that in a later video in this series. But this particular treadmill had several components that I could use. Every treadmill also comes with a good quality steel frame. And you can cut that frame up and make all kinds of things out of it. I've used the material from Treadmills to make everything from engine cradles to other projects in my shop. So by casting a wide net, you can get the components that you need. The Treadmill that this motor came with did not come with a choke because it had a high-end power supply. Now, that sounds really good. You're like, a high-end power supply, I bet that's really good for repurposing. Well, it's not, because there's no hack for the power supply. The only way I could have used that power supply with this motor was to use the rest of the Treadmill parts, like the Treadmill control panel. So when we get to power supplies, and that is going to be a future video, we'll talk about the difference between using the Treadmill power supply and using a DIY option. And if you are going to use a DIY option, you're probably going to want a choke, which is going to come with this motor, not this motor. So there is definitely some advantage in getting multiple machines. Also, you may be doing a project that this motor is way too big, at which point this one is a better fit. When I did the conversion on my 3-in-1 combo machine, I put a fairly large motor on the lathe drive because the lathe requires far more torque. I put a smaller motor, just like this one, on the mill drive because the mill requires far less torque. So by getting multiple treadmills, scrapping multiple treadmills, you have more options. I know it seems like I didn't cover a lot in this video, but I wanted to get your feet wet, get you thinking about what we are going to be doing in the future with this series. And in the next video, we are going to really dive in and start going over the information that you need to know on doing a treadmill motor conversion. Now, if you can't wait, if you need that information now, make sure you peruse my treadmill motor library, because all the information we are going to cover in this series has already been covered. It's just not in a nice, orderly, succinct series of videos, starting with step 1 all the way to step 15 or 20. If you have any questions on this video or any treadmill motor conversion questions in general, please don't hesitate to contact me through my website or put a comment down in the comments section, and I would love to get back to you.
If you like what you've seen, please click like. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.